Naked Malt, formerly known as Naked Grouse, versus Waterproof, a new sherry-influenced blended malt Scotch whiskey from Macduff International. Which way should you go at the liquor store? Stay tuned for the Whiskey Whistle. Hello, my whiskey people. May the 4th be with you. Mark Kaufman here at Whiskey Whistle on YouTube, sharing a little whiskey awesomeness from Winnipeg, the center of North America, bringing you a very interesting 2-up of blended malt Scotch whiskies. We have the ubiquitous, the quite tasty, the whiskey that I quite like called Naked Malt. This is formerly known as Naked Grouse, and they've kind of done a bit of a departure. They've moved the brand away from famous grouse, and I think it flies off shelves because of its excellent sherry focus. Then we have something new that you may have never seen before, except here right now. You might have noticed that it's been getting some awards. This is from Macduff International, the makers of Isla Mist, Louders, Grand McNish. There's one more I'm missing. But anyway, so this is also a blended malt Scotch whiskey. It's higher in proof. We've got 43% for the Naked Malt. And then we've got 45.8% for the Waterproof blended malt Scotch whiskey. A bit of an ABV advantage for this one, but we'll get these poured. I'm going to set these down in front because they're just taking up too much real estate. Here we go. This has not been open for a while. When you have a bottle that has not been open for a while, invert it, let it kind of soak up a little bit of moisture in that cork, and then twist it. Don't pull. There we go. Nice little squeak. Okay, let's get that poured. So they've changed the bottle a little bit. It used to have a picture of a grouse on the front, embossed, kind of like this. But they've gone to a barrel, which is a little tongue-in-cheek because, you know, growing up, there was always these images of people, maybe they just didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, and they would just wear a barrel and kind of like with almost as coveralls. So it was quite funny, and they were naked, right? So naked malt. So that's pretty cool, and I like that imagery. I think it's useful, and it gives people an idea that, okay, here we have nothing but the whiskey to promote the whiskey. It's just the whiskey. The barrels are well in focus, so that's great. That's great, I think. Okay, so then we've got Waterproof. Let's get that poured. This is a rather new bottle. Not much of a squeak there, and they've done quite the, let's call it jazzy marketing. Whoa. Looks even to me. Okay, so 45.8%. A few things that are kind of neat. The label itself looks as though it's got water beads on it, kind of like if it were a brand new umbrella. So that's kind of neat. Also on the back label. Okay, and they're selling just the bare bottle, no box. Also forward thinking. They could probably do without this, but this is batch number 1. There's going to be different batches, and apparently they're going to let it fly. They're going to let it ride. Batches are going to have a bit of difference. There's going to be some pretty big batch variants, and that's what they want. So that's fantastic. I mentioned this is from Macduff International. Now on the back of the label, there's nothing about whether it's chill filtered. 45.8%. I'm thinking it probably isn't. I hope it's not. It's also not on the website either. But we'll just have to wait and see how it looks. But it'd sure be nice if Macduff International just threw that on the label, which would be great. All right, so first of all, let's check the color out of these two whiskeys. Where? What do we see there for color? From my point of view, it looks like they're practically the same hue. And yeah, you know, I think the Naked Malt is a little bit darker, the Waterproof a little bit lighter, again adding to the potential theme that we have. No color added. I didn't mention that yet. no color added to the waterproof. I have a feeling we have color added in both of these, but we'll find out. I don't think there's anything on this label here about color. Layers of rich, fruity flavor crafted by Diane Stewart. Thank you very much, Miss Stewart. No, nothing about color not being added, so we should assume that there is color added. Okay. Super. And if you're not sure, Naked Malt, formerly known as Naked Grouse, which was part of the famous Grouse line, it still is part of the parent company known as Edrington. Okay, so let's check the legs out together side by side. And please remember, so these are blended malts, meaning that we have only single malts that are mixed together from at least 2 distilleries or more. Probably more, and I'm guessing in the case of the waterproof, there's probably quite a number of malts. And right now I am getting a very interesting waft of sherry-influenced notes here coming up as I stroll these around. And here we go. Let's have a look at the legs together. Pretty much identical. I want to say that the legs on the waterproof are a little bit more substantial, a little bit more defined, and slightly more watery, pardon me, for the Naked Malt. However, yeah, no, they both have some very nice slow secondary legs, telling me that there's some good content, good cask content that's in these. As for clarity, they both appear to be minimally filtered. They're not clear as a crystal ball. But anyway, again, there's really no information about chill filtering for either of these. 43%, so likely it is. 45.8, it might not be. That seems to be that point where the distiller, the blender, the owner of the brand no longer has to worry about things getting cloudy in the glass until you're adding ice and other mixers or whatever to that. Hopefully you'll enjoy these neat, but I hear that you can make some great cocktails with these. Okay, so now I have reviewed the Naked Grouse in the last 2 years, so it's a bit of a re-review. However, it's now branded as Naked Malt, so I want to have at least a little bit of WhiskyWhistle, what can I call that, a little piece of the pie of viewership. So hopefully you'll just enjoy that and watch along. Share your notes, whether that's from your Naked Grouse bottle or your new Naked Malt bottle. And if you have one of each, tell me if you think there's any changes or if it's really just a rebranding. I'd love to hear your point of view on that. And as for the waterproof, we'll save that for last. So stick to the end. And we'll give each of these a WhiskyWhistle whiskey score in turn. And for both of them, we'll check out the nose, the palate, the finish, neat and with water. Give them a WhiskyWhistle whiskey score as well. And before we get into that, don't forget to subscribe to WhiskyWhistle. And do that because you'll get notified of future Whiskey Whistles. Okay? And hit like. Leave a comment. Are you enjoying the content here at WhiskyWhistle? Would you like to see something that you've tried that you want me to review? Leave me a note, and I've also got my business email in the description below that you can send me some information if you do need. Okay? And if you're also enjoying a lot of Whiskey Whistles and you've been watching for a number of months or years, why not jump in and support the channel on Patreon? Patreon.com/WhiskyWhistle. You'll get your name in the Patreon. There we go. Okay, yes, I can learn different pronunciations. Okay. A lot of people in the UK and Europe say Patreon, but apparently the good fellow that started Patreon is his pronunciation of that. So there we go. So patreon.com/whiskey-whistle. And if you do become a patron on my Patreon channel, then you'll get your name in the credits, which are at the end of this video. You'll also get advanced viewing of future Whiskey Whistles. Last but not least, with enough support, you'll get yourself your Whiskey Whistle Glencairn glass. Okay, so let's get into this. Naked Malt first. I can't wait. I quite like this one. Here we go. Right off the bat, the first nose is so inviting. You get just a big wall of sherry-influenced fruit. You've got overripe strawberries that are almost ready to be turned into jam. And if you don't do it, you're going to have to throw them out tomorrow. So very, very ripe strawberries. There is, in fact, strawberry jam notes here with a little bit of caramelly type of a note that you get in a good jam. We've got some nice dried fruits. We have, well, I think some dried red fruits. Of course, some nice raisins as well. But it's just a really, really fruity, caramelized fruit type of a note that I'm getting there. And then drizzle that with some nice sweet vanilla custard or vanilla icing. So quite a sweet frontal nose on this one. The deeper you get, the more spice you get. Some very light cinnamon, some good nutmeg in there, some sweet cardamom. Very inviting. And I think for a lot of people, you open up a new bottle of your Naked Malt, Naked Grouse, and you're really rewarded right off the get-go. And it's 43% ABV. The price is good. It could be better. In fact, what is it, like $45 plus tax? The price might have gone up here in Manitoba where I am. But, you know, you could spend a little more. You can get yourself a single malt like Highland Park 12 or Glen Geary Founders Reserve. But I don't know if you'll do better in terms of your enjoyment of the whiskey. I think this punches pretty high, actually. All right, on to the palate for the Naked Malt. Cheers, folks. Fruity, spicy palate. Definitely has the sherry focus that you like. Naked Malt probably contains some sherried Macallan at the younger end. A little bit of Highland Park. Some Glenrothes. And possibly some other malts that they've sourced, because those three are actually doing pretty well. I mean, Macallan for sure. I mean, that's the third best-selling single malt in the world. Highland Park also is a top distillery. And Glenrothes steadily rising in people's mindset of what constitutes a good whiskey. What is it called? Maker's Cut. Glenrothes Maker's Cut. I don't know if that's been discontinued, but a nice high proof, delicious sherry focused single malt. With a couple of sips, you get the fruit that's all there, all the red fruits. Again, it's really ripe strawberry kind of focused. You got the dried fruits as well. Then you got some nice spices, a little bit more ramped up on the palate than on the nose. I think my only comment about, negative comment about this would be that it's a little bit thin. And if you're a single malt lover and you're coming from higher proof cask strength whiskeys and you want a budget whiskey to kind of well, lighten the load on your wallet for whiskey, I would suggest this, but you have to recognize that it's not cask strength and it's not 46%, it's 43. So you just have to be prepared for that and adjust your drinking habits accordingly. And the real savvy whiskey nuts, well, they might take this and they might get themselves some Highland Park cask strength like this one here, or perhaps a Macallan Classic Cut, which are triple the price, and maybe add a few drops into your naked malt, lifting the proof. Get that proof up to 46 by adding a teaspoon or two of a nice single malt that's sherry focused, and then you've got yourself something that is the right strength for you and still kind of helping your budget. Okay. The finish is pretty mild, not too tannic. It's fruity, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of spice, just sort of trailing out there. But I'd call that a short to medium finish. Nice warming finish, however. One more sip test here. The more you sip, the brighter it gets, the fruitier it gets, and the spice kind of backs down a little bit as your tongue kind of acclimatizes to that type of spice. Quite nice. Okay, so let's add a little bit of water there. About half a teaspoon. I still cannot find my water dropper, my, what is it called? Valanche. It's somewhere. Oh, that was a little bit too aggressive. And what I'm doing when I'm doing that is I'm trying to force the water and the whiskey to get together quickly because it can take a bit of time. And I think one thing that you should know is that pour in the water, you stick your nose in right away. And sometimes some whiskeys actually get more aggressive at first. And in Scotland, I believe they actually call that releasing the serpent. So you got to let it just kind of do its thing and get those two different liquids to mix perfectly together because they have the same density, don't they? Okay. So the nose here now for naked malt with water added. I'm getting a lot more spice, a lot more lovely wood spices, a little bit of cedar. Some nice warm cedar. Fresh toasted oak. Do you ever have those cedar inserts that you put in your closet because cedar is great for freshening your clothes and yet also keeping some kind of insects at bay? A little bit of that nice fresh cedar. Not quite incense level, but anyway, just very, very nice cedar notes. Very warming. And with time, you get a little bit of the raisins coming back. So it's a little bit warmer, a little bit spicier, a little bit more woodsy. And let's check out the palate now with water for naked malt. Interestingly, at the same time, it's sweeter, and yet it's also drier, more astringent. The finish is also more astringent with water added. But it's an interesting change, an enjoyable one. And it makes me think of Glenrothes, actually. And you know, if there were only 3 malts in this bottle, likely Glenrothes would have the biggest share because it is the least, let's say, hot distillery. But it is really enjoyable. And this would be my third or fourth bottle, starting back with Naked Grouse a while back, and then I replaced the bottle, and then here we have yet another bottle, but now rebranded as Naked Malt. So make sure you realize that that's the same. I personally don't detect any big differences, but I don't have the bottle right here with me. So that would be something that would be fun to check out. I don't think I will do that. I think it's a bit overkill to have 3 different videos for Naked Malt, Naked Grouse, all together. So great. Let's get on to the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score then for Naked Malt. What is that going to be, folks? It's going to be 85 out of 100. You heard it. 85 out of 100 is the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for Naked Malt. Price wise, in terms of the price and the way I feel about it, I'll definitely get another bottle when this one is drained. That's a certainty. It's I believe it really is a great bottle for one's budget, especially if you happen to be a single malt lover. I think that really stretches the budget a lot. Okay, so let's get into the new waterproof. Really excited to try this again. It's been a while. I tasted it. I put it away. I've decided that probably viewers like to see a bottle that's full rather than half empty or 3/4 empty. Of course, sometimes there's just no two ways about it. I just don't get to something in time. And whether it's me or my club and the level gets way, way down, what do? Okay, so waterproof. There's really no knowledge as to what type of whiskey is in there. What I will read here on the back. Thank you for picking up this batch numbered bottle of waterproof blended malt Scotch whisky. Making a full flavored sherry influenced blended malt Scotch whisky. Blended malt whiskey allows it to be bottled at higher strength at 45.8%. The character shines through, whether enjoyed neat over ice with water or as part of a cocktail. And the name waterproof, simply proof meaning, whiskey, the history of whiskey. We had to consider proof. Proof meaning if it's foolproof, you can light gunpowder and it still will light even though it's doused with whiskey. And then they changed all the proofs based on that. So 100 proof, it'll light with whiskey. 105, it's overproof. 110 is overproof. 95, a little bit less. 90, 85, 80, 75, 70. 70 proof is roughly 40% ABV, I believe. And there's some funny formula. I can't recall what it is, but you can check that out and figure that out. And that's a different proof than the proof they use in USA. So it's very confusing. Probably why they generally don't use that imperial proof in marketing, because of the influence of the American market on Scotch whiskey production. Okay, so let's check out the nose together for this waterproof blended malt Scotch whisky. Now, it's less overtly sherried on the nose. And it's a little bit more well balanced in a way. I feel like there's something possibly just a dash of peat happening in there. And that's not to say that that's Isla peat, but rather a malt that has a typical low level of peat, like 2 to 5 ppm, of which there are many, including Highland Park. We have some light vegetal notes alongside the sherry. And the sherry here is kind of like, there's something kind of like tamarind. So spicy and sweet at the same time. And you roll it around, and it's like cinnamon hearts and a little bit of strawberry, those strawberry foamy candies that are shaped kind of like the mushroom top. This is just really, really different. And I mean to say that's in a good way. And when I'm nosing this, I probably wouldn't assume that this were fully sherry matured. Probably a lot of finishing going on here, and some straight up refill American oak ex-bourbon going on. And I can tell it's going to be a little bit more zingy. That might be a good thing. The sherry component here, I mentioned a little bit of that candy strawberry note. A little bit of dried no, more like fruit roll-ups. Yeah, fruit roll-ups. Okay, so on to the palate here. Cheers. Wow. Super sweet on the palate. There's got to be some first fill sherry finishing going on. For sure, there's some PX casks here. Dried fruit, including mango, not dates. Well, the lighter dried green grapes, dried Thompson seedless grapes. And again, I'm coming at this for the first time in quite a while. It's got a really spicy, dry, sweet, like Indian dessert spiced finish going on here on the finish for this waterproof. My palate's telling me that the average age and also the upper age for waterproof is higher than that for naked malt. And it's much more complex. In a way, because of its just simple sherry focused nose and palate here, there's something very simple and lovely about this naked malt. However, I think for a more refined palate, I think you'll appreciate the waterproof a little bit more, and I would recommend that you try that. And I'm saying that, of course, way before we get to the nitty gritty here, but something to be considered for sure. There's a roasted red pepper, slightly peat influenced note on the palate. That could be something like a little bit of Highland Park added, or some Glen Talkers. There's a saltiness to this as well. Sherry, kind of saline, briny note. My friend Joe was asking what the word saline means. Well, it just kind of means, salt water. But very clean, as opposed to very marine-like. There could be some Old Pulteney in this malt. This blend of malts, pardon me. But very potent. It's a little bit aggressive, and that 45.8% is acting more like about 48 in the glass. The finish is longer, more complex, more interesting. The nose is kind of missing, though, that just signal that tells you sherry malt. But the rest of it, and its balance and its complexity, makes up for it in spades here. Okay, let's add some water. There we go. So with water added, that's about about 5 milliliters. Much more approachable. It's for sure, it's softer. And that peat and a little bit of sherry and peat kind of coming through on the nose here. And I would eat my hat if there were absolutely zero peat involved here. Roasted fruits, like a fruit compote that you might want to have with your roast pork. Some roasted apricots. Yeah, that's the thing I'm looking for here. A spiced roasted apricot. Bunch of apricots that are gaining some of the meat flavor and the salt and the roastedness. Just getting rid of my fingerprints. It's still not hazy, and I've added enough water that it should be if it were unchill filtered. So I'm thinking that it is chill filtered. With water, everything is easygoing. The sweetness, a little bit toned down. The spice is delicate and easily enjoyable. The peat is tempered, and the sherry is just a little bit warming and fruit. What can I say? Fruit influencing here. But I can tell these are very sweet malts to begin with, whatever they were. More and more I'm thinking that for sure there is some Old Pulteney in there. Great mouthfeel. The finish with water, not so much dry as sweet and fruity. Some vanilla added there. Tiny bit of spice, and it carries quite a long time. Let's have one more sip. Well, I got to say, I like that a lot. And they talk about how well it makes, how well it goes in cocktails, and I can see that for sure. And I think when they talk about cocktails and adding water and ice, and it remains clear, I'm guessing, otherwise they would have published a bit of a warning on the back label. Again, fueling my idea that, yeah, for sure, it's chill filtered. And that's not the end of the world, is it? Okay, so let's get on to the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for waterproof blended malt Scotch whiskey. What is that going to be, folks? It's going to be 88 out of 100. You heard it, 88 out of 100 is the WhiskyWhistle whiskey score for waterproof blended malt Scotch whiskey. Definitely needs a malt hug. Great. Well done with this. Great marketing as well. And I'm looking forward to see the future batches here in Manitoba. I think we were one of the few to get this. Thanks for watching. That was the Naked Malt, pardon me, I almost said Naked Grouse, Naked Malt versus waterproof. And a little bit of an advantage for waterproof. ABV for sure. Also, I think the malt blend, the average age is older. I think the oldest malt is older than that for the Naked Malt. And I think it's just a little bit more complex. It also seems to really do well with water added. And I think it's going to make some great cocktails too. I'll have to try that this summer. Again, my name is Mark Kaufman. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you for the next one. Goodbye now.